Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hurdle the Line. We've had a couple of weeks off, obviously, due to the Super Bowl. We thought we'd give everyone a break because, well, everyone's worked so hard this season. We all we all deserve to have a little bit of time to soak in the Super Bowl. Some of us needed some time to get over the Super Bowl. Some of us needed some time just to kind of relax after it. Speaking of people who needed some time just to kind of get over the Super Bowl, the I've got with me today, we've got Tom. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Glad that I've had a couple weeks to, process what happened. So yeah, but ready and raring for. I mean, it's always sad because it's a finite. Not only, your team loses the Super Bowl, but also it's the last game of the season
Yeah,
for
yeah.
7 months. So it kind of, yeah, it's kind of that finite just comes to an end. So
Yeah.
that's always tough.
Uh,
But
you you and I have been back and forth in a little bit this last week, just just constantly just being like, bro, I don't know what to do with myself. I just yesterday 6 o'clock rolls around and it's just like, mate,
Mate, all I've been doing at six
I
o'clock on
can't.
Sunday is watching random. Like, luckily, the NFL knows what people are doing because they know people are bored, so they're posting the top 100 throws of 2024 or the
Yeah.
top 10 plays by rookies, and I'm like, that's exactly what I need. So I'll just continue to watch those.
Yeah. It's the point where you get to like the top 100, I don't know, like O-line blocks or
Yeah,
the top
It's-
100 nearly a sacks kind of thing where you're just like, right, I need to find something else to do here. Other than that, though, like I mean, these the NBA season's on.
Mm,
Um,
yep,
in fact, I'm repping the Pistons here. So
you are. I mean, they're playing well right now, aren't
on a
they?
six
So
win streak.
six wins.
Cade Cunningham's lighting the league up
Oh,
at the
he
moment.
is.
I'll
Deservedly an all-star as well.
yes, I completely agree. Try and take some bias out of it. Completely agree. Um, we're on a 6 game win streak, all good. So I'm enjoying that. There's the NHL that's on, and obviously we've just passed the All-Star weeks for both of those, the NBA and the
Mm,
NHL. Baseball has just started, spring training started up this weekend.
saw that.
Is what's other than watching top 100 compilations of just about anything you can find in a season? What else are you getting up to in kind of terms of sports world?
Mm. Sports world, watching the Premier League, but then I'm kind of losing interest with that as well because it seems like that's almost over and it's February. So especially after, Liverpool winning at the weekend and Arsenal
Yeah,
losing, I was like, okay, so this is kind of basically done. And the three teams that are going down look like they've already really been decided. So but at least the Champions League's still there. So kind of that will keep me
yeah,
going. And then as you said, the NBA is on quite a lot, so I tend to watch quite a lot of the highlights of that one as well. But yeah, those are the main sports fixes. To be fair, other than that, I've just been watching loads of catching up on TV series. Watching would recommend. There's a TV show on Disney Plus, and it's about the origins of Wu-Tang Clan. So I'm watching that at the moment,
oh,
which is
nice.
awesome. Yeah, that's really good. I love Wu-Tang Clan anyway, so I'm geeking out on the series because they're playing all this music like EPMD and stuff, and I'm like, I know exactly what that is. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Well,
like, yeah, yeah.
if anyone, look, I'm a hip hop boy. I'm a 90s hip hop boy as well. But if I could, if I go to Tom for my night, to you for more hip hop stuff because Tom is your guy on hip hop, um, especially like, all areas of hip hop as well. You're all over it, man. There's a playlist.
Mm.
I'm not gonna try and dox you too much. Or all three people are gonna be like, Tom, I need this playlist. But like, there's a playlist that Tom has compiled on Spotify, and it's like 6 years long of just pure hip hop, and it's
80, I think it's
incredible.
80 hours at this point. So it's been compiled over the course of like 9, 10 years, something like that. So
Crazy.
it still gets added to every now and again as well. So there we go.
Um, but yeah, I mean, look, the one thing I do want to touch on before we get on to the thing we're all here for, which is the NFL, is did you watch any of the All-Star stuff from NBA or?
So I did.
Okay.
I found it hilarious. I didn't watch it live, but then on the day after I watched. I watched the dunk contest with Mac McClung,
Three in
which
a
was
row.
insane that he literally jumped over a car and dunked. That was impressive. And it looks like next year they're going to get, some of the stars back, or at least that's what Twitter is saying. Well, Giannis said that he would be up for it, and we want to see the best people compete in the dunk
Yeah.
contest as well. So that would be cool. And then I also saw the hilarious thing of Wemby and Chris Paul getting, um, what do you call it? They got disqualified because when they were doing the skills challenge, they were just throwing the ball all over. They weren't actually trying to get it in the hoop, right? They were just doing it as quick as they could.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was quite funny too. But
Did I'm gonna say got to shout out Matt because that's three in a row. White boy doing it for us all. Keeping the hope alive.
we are on a generational white sports person run of we had Cooper DeJean in the Super
Yeah.
Bowl, score a pick six, and we got Mac McClung 3 time. So yeah, that is
Um.
impressive scenes.
So the only other thing was the hockey one.
Mm. I saw the fights. That is what I wanted
Yeah.
to see.
So the best joke I've seen out of all of this is when it comes down to All Stars. So obviously the Pro Bowl is the NFL's All Star weekend. It's like, well, when it comes down to All Stars, the NFL are like, right, guys, let's play a nice friendly game of flag football. Nobody gets hurt. The NBA are just like, right, let's just make it look like we're pretending to play a bit of defense. And then the NHL come in with the Lord Farquaad quote of some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make. It was USA played Canada in the first 9 seconds. There were three fights. And
Yeah.
it was literally a case of puck down, gloves off, straight into it. That was it for me. I was done. I was
Mm.
like, yep, that's everything I need to see. I'm happy with that. That was fun.
Yeah,
And then
exactly. No,
obviously
I
Canada
agree. And
beat
then they also got their revenge as well because I think USA beat Canada in the group
they did.
stage, but then in the final,
They did.
Canada won. So still proven that it is their sport, even if they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1992 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I say we can talk about. I mean, there's so much time to talk about other things other than NFL, but we do want to get into it. So there's just since the Super Bowl, there's been a couple of little bits of news. As we all know, around this time of year, some things start bubbling. The postseason, everyone's trying to prepare for 2025 is kind of happening. So there are some pieces of news, although it's going to start drying up until, well, as soon as free agency actually kicks in and whatnot, then it'll jump. But since the Super Bowl, not the day after, I think it was the Tuesday, the final head coach position left was taken as Kellen Moore was
Worst kept
hired by,
secret.
yeah, world's worst kept secret. Only second to the Ben Johnson to the Bears, it felt like. There's um Kellen Moore hired by the Saints as their new head coach. That means all six, is it six or seven? One, two, three, four, five, six. No, seven head coach positions in the NFL are filled. So that's the Bears with Ben Johnson, the Jags with Liam Cohen. And right, can you give us your best Liam Cohen Duval, please? Just for why not?
I'm trying to think how he says
It,
it.
it was it was the Duval.
Duval.
He did because he did that weird one on the press conference that just stormed the
I
internet.
tell you what was funny is in that Liam Cohen press conference, he looked like a person who didn't look like he should be there, not in terms of his pedigree or whatever, but I
Yeah.
was like, he looked like he'd had a few down the bar and then come to the press conference and then just started talking. So,
Well, I mean, I think we're entering an era now with like a different kind of NFL head coach and press conferences and things like that. I always look back to Dan Campbell, who clearly just chugged about 15 cans a monster and was just like, I'm gonna bite kneecaps off and all that. I like it. The Raiders obviously did the weird thing and hired Pete Carroll.
mm, that was a very strange hire.
New England Patriots obviously went with Vrabel, Saints with Kellen Moore, New York Jets with Aaron Glenn, and the Dallas Cowboys, with the weirdest of all of them, went with Brian Schottenheimer. That's all seven roles filled. It we've got plenty of time to talk about who's going to have success and who we're looking forward to seeing. But just that last one, Kellen Moore to the Saints. What do you think of it?
I think it was a good move. I think it was always going to happen. I know obviously Philly wanted to keep him. That the offense, it has sputtered through different parts of this season. Well, when the passing game wasn't going, but the running game has been an absolutely electrical season. And he's been a big part of that. So, and from going from what they were 2-2 after week 4 to then win however many games
Yeah,
that they did in a row, and just improve every time, especially in the playoffs. They were just absolutely dominant. So, the adjustments from him were really impressive, and hopefully he can bring that same thing to the Saints, who are they're declining at the moment, but they've got to right the ship a bit. They've got a lot of aging players, big contracts, a lot of dead cap money with
yeah,
the Saints. So they're going to have to retool, and he'll be a big part of that.
yeah, 100%. It feels a bit like a poison chalice at times, but it's gonna be a very interesting one to watch. The other bit of news we have is the NFL announced or have told teams officially to expect the cap this year to be between 277.5 and 281.5 million. It's believed to kind of be call it $280 million roughly. Obviously, give or take 1 million, but that means nothing in this sense. It may as well just be that. So call it 280 mil. It's roughly a 8% increase on last year and is a 35, no, $25 million increase year on year. Last year was one of the bigger increases as it went up 30 million from 224 million, 13%. But it seems to be following a pattern, but that's a huge jump. An extra
Yeah, I mean it's a massive
20 million.
jump, but it's only going to grow as well. With already how commercial the NFL is, but there's all these different deals. Netflix is trying to get involved, Amazon, like there's so much money now
Yeah,
that they're pumping it into the NFL, and that's only going to increase, and the cap's going to swell up. And but what it means is that it's not just it's every team is going to have that money though as well. It's not a case of one team's going to have X amount more than the other.
yeah,
Like it's going to be an even playing field, and it's gonna make it even more interesting. When it comes to free agency, whether they're going to re-sign such and such, or because they're going to have that extra money that they can use to re-sign or to sign another player from a different team. So
yeah.
it's only gonna make it more interesting, I guess.
It's weird to think that the COVID season was 198 million, and since then it's gone up just about $80 million cap space. Year on, you talk about, you're averaging about 16 million a year.
Yeah,
70, it's crazy money.
that's a lot of
Uh,
money.
And that's to think as well, the year after for 2021, because of COVID, they actually dropped the cap
Mm.
by what was it? By 15 million. So in 2021, it was 182.5 million
And
for
now
that
it's going to be what between
4 years.
277 and 281. So that's a big increase.
So actually, that's 100 million in 4 years, averaging 25 million a year over the last 4 years.
Crazy. Yeah, that's massive increases.
Um, Alongside that as well, you've got the final GM position was taken as
Mm.
James Gladstone, former LA Rams director of scouting strategy, is now the Jags GM. Obviously, they had the issue with they couldn't get Liam Cohen in because of Trent Bulk. So they fired Trent Bulk to get Liam Cohen in, and then obviously had to go. just something. One of the things
It
that
was just
only
it
the
was something
Jags.
only, the most dysfunctional of organizations do. Like it's crazy. Out of all of it, I felt sorry for Baker Mayfield because he was like, "Oh, Liam Cohen's coming back. He's going to be my offensive coordinator," and then he's like, "Nah, I'm going to sign this contract with Jacksonville." So,
Um, but it's only the Jags could be that dysfunctional.
mm.
But to be fair, there are a couple of the franchises in history who've probably been about that dysfunctional,
Oh
but it's the
yeah,
Jags right
true.
now. The Jags are that dysfunctional.
It
It's
is.
crazy. But other than that, you've also got Darren Mauge, the former assistant GM of the Denver Broncos, who's with the Jets. John Spytek, the assistant GM for the Bucks, has gone to the Raiders, and Mike Borgonzi, who you will be very familiar
Long
with.
time front office member of the Chiefs going to the Titans. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's been in Kansas City since 2009,
Yeah,
um,
17 years I think he's been with the Chiefs.
which is ridiculous to think. Most people have bounced by at least a couple of teams by then, because it's going to be interesting to see how he fares in a new organization, in a new city, in a new state. It's going to be interesting to see that, and he's got the number one pick in the draft. Let's see how he goes. Other couple little bits of news. I can't lie, this one's funny, and it shouldn't be funny, but it's funny. Former NFL star wide receiver Steve Smith this weekend has been called out on social media by his apparently lover's husband. Um, a gentleman has claimed that Steve Smith Sr. has been sleeping with his wife, who was a Baltimore Ravens band member. I believe it's a band
Yes.
member. Steve Smith himself has been married since I think it's the late 90s, early 2000s with four kids. But you shouldn't laugh because this is two families that are potentially being torn apart.
Hmm.
Um, the man
But it
proceeded.
was while he was like doing the show with the NFL, like going around to different, organizations. So he was with the Ravens, with the marching band, and what business he was getting up to while he was there. So
Um, so,
it's kind of it's crazy to be fair.
but this is not just a claim that's been made. Evidence has been brought forward,
Mm.
including screenshots of
I would
text
love to
conversations.
see if Jerry Judy has tweeted about this after he called him just a guy. But yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah. Including one. I'm not going to show it on here, but there is one screenshot that I don't know. It had me laughing in work all afternoon. There's someone who'd walk past. I'd be there about to go on for my break, just looking happy. So I'm like, what, what's got you so like chipper? And I'm like, just you will never don't bother, ignore it. Um, so that's obviously it's not proper property, but it's just something
Mm.
that again, it pertains to the NFL. It's
Yeah.
made me laugh. It's made us laugh. It's um other bits of news because obviously just with the way we're having a couple of weeks off, there were a couple of little bits that we missed from the week after the Super Bowl. Um, the Chargers will be playing as a home team in Brazil in week one. So the NFL are going back. The last time a team hosted a game in Brazil, they went on to win the Super Bowl. So I don't know, maybe start putting your money on the Chargers now.
Mm.
Because the Eagles did it last year and look where they got to.
Very true.
I mean, did you watch the Brazil game last year?
I did. Yeah,
What
yeah,
did you
yeah.
think of it? Do you think lot to improve on? Do you think they can
Yeah,
do
I
it?
mean, yeah, a lot to improve. I mean, the game was actually quite good in terms of the game on the field. I mean, there was some. The surface wasn't always the best. I mean, that was proven and not to take anything away from Jaden Reed, but when he caught the pass and then ran all the way for the touchdown, like the Eagles defenders were just falling all over the place
Yeah.
because of some of the turf issues and what have you. But it was all the stuff in the lead up to it, wasn't it? That was crazy. They were like, "Oh no, we need
Yeah.
arm guards, we need this, we can't
Can't
go
wear
outside,
green.
we can't do." Any of this stuff. So I doubt most of that's true.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, Darius Slay said that he was like he didn't leave his hotel because he was, he feared for safety and what have you. But
And that's a man who lived in Detroit for years, so you've got to know how bad it's got to be in Brazil.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, lots to improve on, but let's hope they get it better this time round. I'm sure it'll still be a great spectacle and there'll still be loads of fans there and stuff. So
Yeah. Other little bits, just a couple of tiny little bits. Lewis Rees-Zammit has been re-signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars to their active roster. Now, obviously, this has sparked some conversations. A lot of people who, not to be disrespectful, probably clearly don't know a lot about the NFL have got very excited by it or been very. Obviously, your rugby people who watch rugby don't really know much about the NFL, but know obviously of Lewis Rees-Zammit and what he's doing. Look, I'm going to personally just say this, like, just temper your expectations again. We had to say this last year. Temper those expectations. Lewis Rees-Zammit is a project. He's always going to take 1, 2, 3 years to build up. The active roster sounds exciting, but this is the off-season active roster. This is a 90 plus man roster. He's
yeah.
got a long way to go to make it to the final 53 in
Oh, he does. He
August.
does. Yeah, you're right. I mean, as you said, temper your expectations. You want to see him make the team, but we thought that when he, signed with the Chiefs last off season, he was going to be some sort of piece for them, and that wasn't the case. So, just be wary. Hopefully, he can.
Yeah,
We all want to see him get some, regular season and actual, make the roster and have an impact. But as you said, there's a lot of competition, and he's got to prove himself. So, but
exactly.
it is good that they've done that though. He's not just part of the practice squad, so they clearly believe in him and believe in the abilities that he has. So let's see if he can translate that into actually playing.
Yeah, and you are our resident rugby person as well, so obviously we'll be coming to you on a number of occasions to see what your thoughts are, especially because like I say you knew him before you went to the NFL. Um, but yeah, just those expectations need to be tempered. It's exciting and it is nice, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't necessarily mean what a lot of people seem to think it means. It's he's not starting week one yet. Um,
No.
there's a long way to go, a long way to go. And the final bit, which you brought up, is that there's a secret NFL person who's pushing for the tush push to be banned. Now, this has been coming up for a few weeks, well, a couple of years now. Um, what do we think? Ban
Yeah, I
it? Don't ban it?
mean, it's hard because yeah, I mean, I feel like they should ban it, but it would be unfair on the Eagles because, the Eagles are the ones that have perfected it. It helps when you have the best offensive line, and you've got Jalen Hurts who can, squat 600 pounds or whatever, and he just gets over. But no other team has been able to replicate it to the same success of what the Eagles has done. And it is
Yeah.
kind of a bit of an unfair advantage, as soon as they get to 3rd and 1, even 4th and 1, 4th and goal, 3rd and goal, like it's happening. I mean, people have tried their best to stop it. I even saw in the Super Bowl that Chris Jones literally lined up sideways to try and stop it. So, people have tried all sorts of different things to negate it, and it's not done anything. So I'm sure the NFL will step in at some point and say, this
Yeah.
is not a football play. It looks more like a rugby scrum than it does look like anything that should be happening on an NFL field. But within the rules of what is happening right now, the Eagles are using that to their advantage, and fair play to them for that. So until
Yeah.
it does get banned, then I'm sure they're going to continue to use it and continue to have success with it.
Yeah. Could not agree more. Could not agree more with you. So that's the news. Unless there's anything else you've noticed on the last like couple of minutes that has popped up.
No,
No,
no, I don't think so.
no major anything's happened in the last like 10 minutes. Right. Okay then. So the idea with this episode is I just the the off season's got to be fun. The off season is well, it's we will go through periods of just where there's absolutely nothing happening, but we'll also go through periods where there's a lot of good things going on. And one thing that always remains is every year there's a couple of stories that are nice to follow. There are things that we will always be looking out for. The names that we'll be looking out for, ideas that we'll be looking out for, what certain teams are gonna do, what they're not gonna do. Obviously, you follow the teams with the new head coaches and the new GMs to see how they are immediately implanting themselves on a team. But there are other things that you kind of widely follow in the NFL. Now, my first thing is we're going to look at some of these storylines, maybe look at how they're going to play out. But I just want to kind of get our thoughts on them, see where we're at with them to start the off season, and then maybe we'll look back in June and go, do you know what, Tom? You need lottery numbers off you because we predicted it just so well. The first thing for me, this is the quarterback story. The quarterbacks will dominate every year. It is what it is. It's the one position that, well, it's the position in the NFL, quarterback. So it dominates every year. It tends to, but it feels, I don't know about you, but it feels like it's a really weird year for quarterbacks. Um, the draft coming up, very weak. Well, or is perceived as a weak quarterback class. Not to there are very few first round talents, and some of them that may go someone that may go in the first round may do so purely on the fact that some team just needs a quarterback and they're there.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
I think some of your best quarterbacks in this draft not even been may have been late day two picks yesterday. They may go
Mm,
in day one this year.
yeah.
Um, but there are a few QB needy teams. And I want us to go through a couple of the teams as well, figure out who you and I might have a different idea of QB needer. Um, but there are a few QBs on the move. Some big names, but maybe not what they once were, because we're talking old men here, not like well, there are some interesting names in there. So we're going to look at some of the free agency market or QBs that may be up for a trade. We'll look at some of the QBs maybe in the draft. We're obviously not go too far into the draft. There's plenty of time again for that one. But just see how we think the QB market might play out. Um, Now I don't know if you want to look at. I'll go with some of the QB needy teams first, and then we'll see how they. And then we'll look at some of the QBs that are on the move.
Sure.
Um, so I'm going to go through in the draft order, and I need to get the draft order back up because I've got my teams noted there, but I haven't actually got the draft order in front of me. Um, the Titans got them in a weird category. They've got Will Levis,
Mm,
but on the other hand, they've got Will Levis. Like, would you consider the Titans to be a QB needy team? And if so, do they want young QB? Do they want veteran? What you thinking?
mm. I personally don't think they're going to go for a quarterback. But that's because I think they're going to pick up one of these quarterbacks in free agency instead. Because I feel like they need some veteran leadership. I know obviously Jaden Daniels last year kind of proved that you don't need that to be able to succeed in a team that has had a lot of success recently. Obviously, the Titans have been in title games and in AFC Championship games in the last 4 or 5 years, and they've had some really good defensive teams as well. But their main offense, before he left for Baltimore, was give the ball to Derrick Henry, right? I mean, that was literally what they were. So I don't think personally they're going to go for especially as you said, it's not seen as a, quarterback rich draft, rich with great talent. So I don't
Yeah,
think they're going to stick with Will Levis. He's basically agony and ecstasy, isn't he? He either
yeah,
throws an absolute beautiful deep ball, to, Calvin Ridley, or he throws the dumbest interception you've ever seen in your life, or he comes up with these wonderful, the pictures of him throughout the season just to highlight him basically from throwing. I don't know why he threw that ball against the Bears in week one. He did it anyway, or the one where he gets picked off and then he's running head down, trying to get back to try and stop, the Texans scoring a touchdown, and that wasn't going to happen anyway. So, his effort is there, but I think they're going to need some veteran leadership. I
mm,
wouldn't be surprised if they're in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, because he's a veteran quarterback. Obviously, I know he's old and what have
yeah.
you. Um, but they need some veteran presence on that team.
Yeah.
And they don't have it at the quarterback position at the moment. So maybe they even go for Russ. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I don't think that they go for a quarterback.
Well, the Browns, obviously, well, they've got Deshaun Watson in the building. I think every single person who watches National Football League football can agree that's not going to be their answer going forward. That's definitely not
No,
their. Jameis Winston came in, um, missed. I will. Footballing wise, I've aptly named him Mr. Mid. He's the bang average. On his best day, he's bang average. He's obviously, well, he won't be there next year, or he's out of contract. So, and don't look like they're bringing him back. DPJ, maybe not the answer. Uh, probably not the answer going forward.
no, I
What
don't think so.
Browns? Would you consider the Browns to be QB needy this year?
100%. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think they're going to take one of these quarterbacks in the draft as well. Because, they're at the moment they're in a rebuild, as much as,
Yeah.
they don't want to think that. The fact that Miles Garrett requested a trade, I don't think that's going to happen because, I don't think the Browns are just going to let him go,
Free
unless
my guy.
they get the value that they want. But the O-line that they had that was, one of the best, if not the best offensive line in the league is now aging. I've just read a thing about Joel Bitonio. He's deciding whether he wants to come back next year.
Yeah.
So, that's another veteran piece on that team. So yeah, they need a quarterback. I don't know who they're going to go for. I mean, it's going to be one of the top two. I mean, where are they picking? Are they picking
Second.
second, aren't they? Yeah. So it's going to be a quarterback that they're going to pick. They're not going to go for a quarterback in free agency unless they do the most hilarious thing. And welcome to Cleveland, Kirk Cousins. But that's yeah.
Um, I think this epitomizes the next two I've got. Well, the next two I've got on my list personally.
Mm,
Um, I think epitomise the term QB needy, and I don't think
mm,
there's much discussion here to be had on whether they need a QB or not. The New York Giants,
yes. 100%.
veteran presence, young quarterback. The what what we thinking?
Um, well, this is why it's quite interesting because I could see them going for a guy like Jameis Winston for some reason. Just because, you know, I don't really know, but they should go for, I don't know, maybe they should go for a quarterback really, if they can, but they're going to have to trade up for, the best ones in the draft because I feel like where are they picking? Five, is it?
Third.
Oh, third. Okay,
So
yeah. So if
Titans, Browns, Giants are your top three picks in the draft.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's say the top two. Well, I said that the Titans aren't gonna pick quarterbacks, so it would mean that they'd have one of the other top QBs left on the board, which I think they would go with because again they're trying to rebuild. They've got a great weapon, great pickup from them, Malik Neighbors last off season. Now, how long does he remain a Giant if they don't actually aren't competitive and what have you? Like, who knows? And they've got a really good defense as well. They signed Brian Burns last off season. Dexter Lawrence is going to be back in the middle of that defensive front.
Yeah,
He was having a great All Pro, Defensive Player of the Year type season before he got injured.
yeah,
They got Kayvon Thibodeau, who's coming on after starting slow as well. Their first round picks, so they got really good defense. But they've got to retool their offense
yeah.
a lot. So yeah, it's going to be interesting what they go for. I reckon they will go for a rookie, but if they were to somehow be able to trade for someone like Matt Stafford, now that would be massive for them
Yeah,
because he's been an elite quarterback in this league for a long time, and you could just see the connection he would have with Malik Neighbors as well.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Well, talking about connections with Malik Neighbors, though, the Heisman ceremony this year, a young man by the name of Shedar Sanders was in attendance at that event for his friend Travis Hunter, who went on to win the Heisman. He was outside playing throw and catch with Malik Neighbours. They've got a
Mm,
relationship. They know each other, and they clearly get on. Malik, I'm right. It's gonna sound like I'm calling Malik Neighbours out, and I swear I'm not. I'm not calling him a diva. I'm not whatever. But it's clear he will voice his opinion if he's unhappy,
mm,
um, which is the right thing. That people take that as being a diva or whatever.
yeah.
I'm not going down that route. He will voice his opinion though if he's unhappy. Quite clearly, if he gets on with his quarterback and you've got that you've clearly got some sort of a pre-existing relationship there. I mean, you keep the guy happy.
Yeah.
Um, the next two in the draft, I think that I've obviously not got the New England Patriots down. They've got Drake May. They'll be going with Drake May going forward. End of
Yeah.
story. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I feel like they're an interesting one. I don't
Mm,
think they move on from Trevor Lawrence. I think they'll ride with Trevor Lawrence, but I
yeah.
want to know for how long. And this is where I'm like, they're not in the position, and particularly I think drafting at five. I'm not. If Shador and Cam are gone, do not reach for anyone else there. Someone
Mm,
just good enough will be
no.
available on the Saturday, let alone that early on the
I
Thursday.
wouldn't be surprised if those guys are gone. If they traded down, to be honest, the Jags,
Yeah,
because they've already got, as you said, I mean they gave Trevor Lawrence the bag last offseason, right? And they've got Brian Thomas Jr. as well, who had an incredible rookie year. They have got some interesting free agents, like I think Christian Kirk might be a free agent. Evan Ingram might be someone that he wasn't that great last year. He could potentially be someone that's cut, post, was it June 31st or something like that?
yeah,
Um, so it would be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, that they should not be reaching for anybody. I mean, Liam Cohen wouldn't have come in as the head
yeah,
coach with the Jags if he didn't think that he could, get it to work with a
yeah.
quarterback of Trevor Lawrence's caliber. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do, but I don't see them going for a QB.
Oh
Definitely not.
no. Um, I only bring them up because they're in the top five. I'm going to go to maybe the top 10,
Mm.
but there aren't too many left. But we'll see. Um, again, the next one on this is up next one on my list of QB needy teams. Epitomizes the term QB needy. That'd be the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they are crying out for a good QB. They've tried to make it work with, they tried to make it work with Jimmy Garoppolo. That backfired. They signed what's his name?
Gardner Minshew on it.
Gardner Minshew, Minshew mania. He hasn't been great for them. They've just had a revolving door at QB for the
And then
longest time. I mean, they had Derek Carr, but he wasn't really getting them anywhere.
Aiden
So
O'Connell.
yeah, Aiden O'Connor. I mean, he's shown flashes, but yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to stick with him. So they need a QB massively. Whether it's in free agency, I mean, I know someone that's been linked with them from the free agent side. I don't think it's a good move personally, but Sam Darnold to the Raiders after his resurgent year with the Vikings.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that happening. But their offensive line isn't the best either, so I don't really know what they do because they're kind of too low to get one of the elite QBs unless they trade up.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting to see as well what's going to happen with their defense as well because they signed Christian Wilkins to this big contract last season. He got injured. I think was he out the whole year or whatever? Like he wasn't effective or he was injured anyway.
Yeah.
Then you have
And
Max Crosby and then he was out for the last few games as well. He's thinking about does he want to still be with the Raiders or not? If they're
yeah.
non-competitive, he's the ultimate competitor. So it's really interesting to see what the Raiders are going to do. And they don't really have a running back either. So it's like and this is a very very good running back class as well. So we can say about the lack of talent for quarterback, but running back is absolutely stacked for this draft, and that's something that desperately needed since Josh Jacobs left.
Yeah. It absolutely. I mean that the whole organization is just you kind of hope that Tom Brady will bring some sort of stability. They've not been stable for a while, but the move to Las Vegas has not helped them. I have some
No.
ideas on it, but I'll come back to that when we do talk about some of the other QBs. In at number 7 in the draft is the Jets. They need a QB now. And again, I think we're following a similar pattern, so we don't need to, I guess we don't need to keep repeating the bit. There's like at this point, the high likelihood is your two genuinely good QB. Well, the two top QBs in the just draft are gone. The rest of them, you will pick someone up on day 2 or day 3 that
Yeah. Yeah,
which
that you
pick up an
there's
elite
kind of a
talent that we have.
project, and you want to see what you can get out of them. Again, I think the Jets, are going to go for a veteran quarterback. They got a roster that's good enough to compete. I know they weren't that good last year, but you know, Aaron Rodgers was not absolutely atrocious last year. Like he wasn't great by his own lofty standards, of course.
Hmm.
But down the stretch, the Jets did play pretty well, and I think the dysfunction of the rest of the organization just reflects on the
Yeah.
rest of the team as well. Woody Johnson is an absolute joke of an owner. And I mean, he doesn't know what I mean. He's literally saying, "Don't sign Jerry Judy because
Give his
his
Madden
Madden
rating.
rating's not high enough or whatever."
Jesus.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, God help the Jets. But they got Aaron Glenn now. They got a defensive coach. I think they
Yeah.
will they will go for a quarterback. I think it will be one in free agency though, as opposed to one drafted one.
Yeah. Um, I would say just to rattle off the last couple of the top 10, Carolina Panthers, they've got Bryce Young, they're
Yeah, I
happy.
think they're going to keep with Bryce Young.
The New Orleans Saints, I've got again, they're in my QB not as needy, but
No, I mean
will
it
they
kind of
do?
depends what. Yeah, it's
With Spencer Rattler and
because Spencer Rattler and Derek
uh,
Carr, and it was quite interesting watching Kellen Moore's interview when he was first brought in, being like, "Are you going to keep with you know?" Are you gonna keep with Derek Carr as QB1 basically? And he skirted around the topic as much as he could, being like, "Yeah, he's an elite QB, he's this and that," and they're like, "Yeah, is he starting?" And then they like, he manipulated his way out of the situation, which you got to be able to do
yep,
as a head coach of an NFL team because you're going to have difficult questions asked of you, and you kind of
yeah.
have to skirt around the topic sometimes.
You have to do the
Um,
political thing where you say words but don't answer the question, but
Yeah, it
have it
doesn't actually say anything.
hopefully
You leave more questions than answers
yeah,
usually with those sort
but
of things.
the
But
person who asks the question, you just kind of have to have them go, all right, okay, then I'll
mm,
take it, whatever. And then
exactly.
finally, in at number 10 is the Chicago Bears, and they've got Caleb Williams,
Yeah,
Heisman winning, former number 1 overall pick. I imagine they'll be sticking with him.
yeah.
Um, I don't see any, obviously. Um, the couple of teams I think are in interesting positions, and I'm just going to throw these out there at a wall, see what sticks. 49ers.
Mm,
I don't know if, for a couple of reasons. I don't think Purdy may be the guy going forward. If you can keep him to a team-friendly deal, you can continue to bolster that roster with enough talent. We've seen better than average QBs with a
mm,
stacked who can just, game managers and whatnot. And it's I'm sick of arguing through that term with everybody talking about game managers. You know what I mean. Shut up.
yes.
Not you specifically. But like everyone knows what I mean. Like there's success to be had there, but could they want something better for the future? They have the
Mm,
luxury, I think, of at least waiting a year and seeing what's next year. Um, so you never know. Carson Beck, we'll see. Um,
yeah.
the Rams, for a reason that we're obviously mentioning, as you've already mentioned, Matt Stafford
Mm.
could be out on the way out. Potentially, we don't know. Um, the Colts need a backup quarterback, and I'm not
Yeah,
sure
the
how
Colts
sold
is
they
an
are on Anthony
interesting one because
Richardson.
I could see them doing something like because it's the same. I feel similar with the Colts as I do with the Steelers in the fact that with the Colts, they've got Anthony Richardson, but they almost need someone to, compete against Anthony Richardson so that they can get the best out of him. Because it feels like at the moment that, he's not progressing in the way that they want him to. His completion percentage, his accuracy has been, it was in question when he got drafted anyway.
Yep.
Obviously, he can throw the deep ball very well, but you're not just gonna be able to throw the ball deep every single play. And that's something that I saw that he's working on in the offseason anyway. But I wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Colts called up the Steelers and said, you know, what do you want for Justin Fields? Because, Justin Fields competing for that job. Yeah, he could potentially win that job if Anthony Richardson doesn't, perform at the level that he can. And I could see him being a good fit in Indianapolis. But then again, for the Steelers as well, I mean, it looks like they're not going to bring back Russ, so it could also be that he could be the starter for the Steelers going forward. But then, what confidence do they have in him? Because even when he was 4-2, they benched him for Russ. And even though it started out well, they ended 6-6 over Russ's, stretch of games and ended up being bounced in the first round of playoffs. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting one, really.
Um, well, I say with the way the Colts are, I mean, I agree with everything you've said, but yeah, I don't know how in they are on Anthony Richardson. I just
Mm,
don't. Like I say, they definitely at least need a backup
yeah,
because, well, you had Flacco. It worked for him the year before. It didn't work for him this year. Um, and I think, well, Flacco will be on his way out, won't he?
yeah, you would
But
have thought so.
then you've got as you say, you mentioned the Steelers. Now they've declined to keep Justin Fields.
Mm,
They are not keeping him. I do believe like the thought when they picked him up after 3 years at the Bears, they had the option to take his fifth year because he was a first round pick. They
yeah.
didn't take his fifth year option. Um,
Mm,
so he is a free agent right now. Well, technically a free agent right now. Obviously, Russell Wilson is a free agent. The Steelers have very clear, pretty much made it clear they don't want either of them to come back.
no.
So the Steelers very much will be in the market for a quarterback, and it'd be interesting to see who they come in. Now, I think just to kind of get the next bit started, we mentioned a number of these names, but
Mm.
Aaron Rodgers, the Jets have basically said, I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, by the way.
Oh, okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
just saying Aaron Rodgers, the Jets have told him. Aaron Glenn walked in and said, like,
Mm.
we got some Aaron on Aaron crime over here.
Yeah.
Um, And as most of you know, like, well, some of you may know, I am an outright. We hate to see it in the Aaron community, but I think we had a meeting the other week, and we all consider Aaron Rodgers to not be a true Aaron, so we're okay with it. But no, Aaron Glenn told Aaron Rodgers like, no, we don't want you. You are not for this locker room. Justin Fields, obviously free agent. Kirk Cousins, the Falcons. We'll see how they go about it, whether they can get a trade for him or
Mm.
whether
Otherwise, they're gonna have to eat a
just
lot of their money.
they're just going to choose to cut him. I think that may end up being the option because what tough. Um, the Rams have told Matt Stafford, or at least they've told Matt Stafford he can test the waters of the market.
Exactly.
Um, they might look to move on for him. It might be so they can understand where he's
I
at in
think
terms of
it's
contract
more
value.
see with the Rams one because I've been reading quite a lot into it. I think it's more a case of he wants to get paid what he's worth. Especially down the stretch last season in the playoffs. Yeah, he played really well. I mean, the Rams were the closest team to beating the Eagles in the playoffs. They had them basically nearly where they wanted them,
Yeah.
with not too much of that game left. So he is an elite quarterback as well. I mean, anyone that argues otherwise can argue with a paper bag. But he, it's his frustration with not getting paid enough, or I think he's on 40 million this year, but
Yeah,
he wants to be on 50 mil. And there's a lot of things happening with the Rams as well. It looks like Cooper Kupp's going to leave as well. And, he's
yeah,
created such a big connection with him. Obviously, you got Puka Nakua there, who's really well, and they've got a really good team that they built around, and they've managed to retool even with these different guys retiring. Aaron Donald gone, and it looks like they got a really good young D line as well, one of the best in the NFL.
yeah,
So I think it's totally up to him, really. I mean, that's what the Rams have said. I think that's what Sean McVay said as well. It's not a case of, we'll welcome you back with open arms, but if it's something that you want to explore and see what the market is, as opposed to, because clearly he thinks he's worth such and such, and whether the market reflects that or not. And if it
yeah,
does, potentially he could be out of LA, and he is aging as well. I think he's 37 now.
yeah,
And the Rams eventually will want to move on and get a new quarterback to be able to run the team for the future. So it's just whether they do that this off season, or next off season, or
yeah.
whether he signs a new contract or not. So it's quite an interesting thing to think about.
I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna say it once, and then it's gonna be the end of it. I need to get it out there. I also think they're just fucking sick of Kelly Stafford. And
Yeah.
dear LA,
Yes.
in Detroit, we told you. Um, I just think that it's just like, go somewhere else. This is Go to Vegas. They'd love her in somewhere like Vegas or New York. She'd fit right in New York. Um, somewhere like that. But like with all due, like I don't want to be that guy. But I said we had to put up with it for years in Detroit. You are finally. Most people are finally learning. You just get rid of Kelly Stafford. Get her out the way. Then you've also got Russell Wilson, who will not be at the Steelers next year.
Yeah,
Sam
for sure.
Darnold, who will not be at the Vikings next year. They're going to stick with JJ McCarthy. A couple other QBs who will be on the market: Jameis Winston, Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Jimmy Garoppolo, Carson Wentz, and arguably the best QB of the whole lot, Trey Lance. Um, so once everyone's done trying to get Trey Lance to sign
Mm.
over the dotted line. The rest may end up falling into place. Just is there any matchups you can see where you sit there and obviously go well maybe just kind of go right that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, you whether you're looking at I think someone like you mentioned Aaron Rodgers potentially to somewhere like the Titans, Justin Fields to somewhere like the Colts, maybe as part of look you got to help teach Anthony Richardson as and when to do what
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins, where could you see him going? Where could you see Stafford going? Russell Wilson,
Mm.
Sam Darnold, where any matchups that you think are really,
Mm.
really good?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold is not going back to the Jets. Anyone that thinks he's just gonna, after all the woes that he had with the Jets, just gonna let that bygones be bygones just because they're gonna give him a load of money. So I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think Russell Wilson is an interesting one. He could potentially be someone that the Steelers, not the Steelers, the Raiders could go after, but then I mean he's a veteran, of course he is, but he's shown that he's declined over the last few years. So is that exactly what the Raiders want? But I think also, what's his name? Kirk Cousins potentially to the Jets. That could be an interesting one. Um, I don't know if it will happen or not, but you know, the Falcons are going to move on from him. The Jets need veteran leadership again. But then the thing is, they've already gone down that road with Aaron Rodgers, so are they willing to go down that a similar road again with an aging QB and see if it works out? Probably not. So personally, I think the best fit that I've seen would be Justin Fields to the Colts. I don't know what it is. There's something about me that just sees Justin Fields working out as a Colt, as an Indianapolis Colt, and Anthony Richardson either, being a backup and learning and maybe taking over the starting job at some point. But yeah, that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting one for me. What about you?
Um, I don't know. I feel like I, I could see someone like Kirk Cousins going to say no. I could see someone like Matt Stafford going to the Giants.
Mm,
Um, Even if it's just to be kind of that veteran presence as has kind of been mentioned. Um, there's no one there though. I'm sat there thinking like
no,
that's a
I think that's the problem with
glove
this
in your
off
hand.
season though. It's like there's no one where you're like, this is the perfect fit. Whereas it feels like in recent times we've been like, even when Matt Stafford went from Detroit and went to LA, it seemed like a great fit culturally for him. He's from California as well,
Yeah.
isn't he? Right? I think so. So he's just this
No, he's
cool.
from Texas. I'm
Oh,
pretty
he's
sure
from
he's from
Texas, is
Texas.
he? There you go. But he's this cool, calm, collected, chilled out guy with the ultimate competitiveness. Um, and it's exactly what the Rams needed. And then obviously with Jared Goff going over to Detroit as well. So like that was a good match for both teams. But it doesn't feel like this offseason that there's a great match for any of them really. Like Sam Darnold could go to any number of teams, but there's going to be question marks over him, especially the last couple of games that he had. Obviously, his season was great. He had a really, really good season. I think he had the second most passing touchdowns for
Yeah.
in a Vikings season ever. But at the same time, those last couple of games, getting bludgeoned by the Lions and just getting taken down, and then same with the Rams, when pressure
Yeah.
came into his face he wasn't the same quarterback. So a team's going to be willing to give him big money and have him lead their franchise. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah. So just as a correction, he was born in Tampa, lived
Ah,
in Georgia for most of the time, and
ah,
then played high school football in Dallas.
hey,
So
right. He
I
just
was like
seems like a California guy, though. I don't know why, but
so I was like, I feel like I was a third right, but also just not. I was wrong. But he did live in Texas for a bit. Um, just for clarification on my incorrect statement before.
yeah.
No, I completely agree. It's that this is the thing with Darnold though. It's I don't buy into the Kevin O'Connell.
Mm,
No, he's done a fantastic job with the Vikings. Don't let me. I'm not saying that, but the whole yes, I kind of bought into the narrative last year and probably shouldn't have, but let's face it, it's not like the Vikings had a terrible team. They
mm,
retained a lot of talent. They had a great
yeah.
year the year before, retained a lot of talent. They had Justin Jefferson for crying out loud, and plus
Mm,
a lot of other talent on offense. It's not like Kevin O'Connell took a bum in Sam Darnold and got him to work really well with a load of bums
mm,
and just made it work. Sam
yeah.
Darnold was a great plug and play because he had the talent to work off, and it
Yes.
was a very talented roster. But like you say, listen, what we've always known about Sam Darnold is what, like you say, when Sam Darnold faces pressure, Sam Darnold sees ghosts. And the second he starts to get pressure, he starts to see ghosts. And Kevin O'Connell did a really good job of managing that in Sam Darnold this year. I think Sam Darnold at the Jets saw ghosts anyway. Like nothing could happen. I think you know, he'd see ghosts what driving home kind of thing.
Mm,
Nothing to do with football. He was just seeing go. But Kevin O'Connell did a real good job of like. But once the pressure, like you said, once the pressure came, once there were plays in his face, once you got a couple of hits on him, he crumbles. He crumbled. Um, that's just and I think again, it's going to be a case of like, do you go somewhere where, and I'm not saying you hope for an injury,
Mm.
You go somewhere where they've got a young quarterback who needs a bit of a veteran, again, a bit of a veteran presence, and you kind of hope that, listen, he's proven that he can go in and do the job if you need him to. A
Yeah.
bit like, again, Joe Flacco did it a couple of years ago. There are quarterbacks who do it. Um, I mean, who was it this year? Andy Dalton at the Panthers when okay, he didn't exactly light it up the way Sam Darnold did, but um, I mean that was kind of it, I guess. For the, I just it's going to be really fun to see because how this draft class plays out with QBs, how the free agency plays out with QBs, because there's just it's a lot of eh, meh.
Yeah.
Um, what do we do? How do we play this one? Yeah, it feels like an interesting year. The other little storyline I brought up was I'm really invested in the Commanders this year. I said to you off camera, I hate the term overachieve. Because if you got to an NFC Championship game, you were damn good enough to be at an NFC Championship
Oh,
game. You
100%. Yeah.
exceeded expectations, but you did not overachieve because you were clearly good enough to get there. They
Mm.
dismantled the Lions. They completely outplayed the Lions, who were everybody's well, maybe not Super Bowl favorite, but NFC favorite going into the season, going into the playoffs, number one seed, and completely outplayed us in our own backyard. They are that good. They were that good. They did not overachieve, but they like I said, exceeded expectations. They have 28 unrestricted free agents hitting the market this year,
Mm.
including I've made a couple of names that I think are significant. Bobby Wagner,
Yep.
Jeremy Chin,
Yep.
Zach Ertz,
Yep.
but the whole just 28 players, you can't bring
There's no way you're going to be
all
able
of
to
them
re-sign
back.
28 players.
Um, and a couple of the ones you can re-sign a few. Some of them are practice squad, not necessarily, well, maybe not practice squad, but some of them were like special teams players. Some of them were
Mm.
depth players,
Yep.
as is always the case. They're the people who live on 1 year contracts, 2 year
Mm.
contracts, etc. But that's an unprecedented. Like, you don't often see that many unrestricted free agents from a single team hitting the market at any given time, or any single time. It's going to be tough to bring up. It's going to definitely be tough to bring back at least the key pieces. You're going to lose a couple of players that were important for you last year.
Yep.
For me, there's a couple of key bits of information though to think of. They have $78.1 million in free cap. It's a lot of money to
A
play
lot of
with,
money.
and I think that is before the cap goes up. So they could have nearly 100 million to spend right now in cap space. And you have Jaden Daniels on a rookie quarterback. If you're offensive talent, I want to go play with Jaden Daniels. Don't know about you. I'd
100%.
love to go play with Jaden Daniels. Um, there's just a couple of things there to you have an enticing offer here, and you've got a lot of open money, and you
100%.
have a Jaden Daniels who people will want to play with, and people want to play for Dan Quinn as well. Clearly,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
what what was it? Like I said, the question, which I didn't, I forgot to ask. What's the best course for the Commanders to take this offseason, do you think?
I think signing a it's tough because they, as you said, they overperformed in terms of expectations based on what was supposed to happen this
Yeah.
year. Um, So I do think they re-signed some of those free agents. I think they re-signed people like, people with that veteran leadership, people like Bobby Wagner, who's been in the league for a long time. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. He's probably going to be part of an ownership group one day because that's what is in his mindset to do. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they look to, improve their defense. signed some people in free agency because that was their Achilles heel. You know, their offense was really good. Terry McLaurin had a
Yeah.
great season for him. I think he had one of the better wide receiver seasons in Washington history in terms of touchdowns, and
Yeah.
he was really really good. Um, so I think they'll look to bolster, a running back. I think they'll definitely look to. I mean, they have got some good running backs there. They got like Jeremy McNichols and um, what's his name, the main one, Brian Robinson Jr. and stuff as well. But their defense is is where they struggled. So I wouldn't be surprised if they look to bolster their secondary, especially, get some different cornerbacks,
Yeah.
maybe a different safety, because their rookies that they've signed haven't performed well. Emmanuel Forbes got benched last year. Benjamin St. Juste wasn't the best last year as well. So I think that's where they're going to look to develop this off season, so that they can come into the next season and feel like they've got a realistic chance of winning the NFC East against, the reigning Super Bowl champion Eagles. So I think that's where they're going to look to bolster. I don't think they're going to look to, I mean, they could look to bolster offensively. Who knows?
Yeah.
They could give the Seahawks a call and be like, what's the availability like of DK Metcalf? Trade for him. Who knows? That would be a mad squad, but
Yeah.
I do think that they go defense first.
Yeah. Obviously, one position in the DBs was forgot to mention was national champion Mike Sanistril, who was
Oh, of
fantastic,
course, he had
obviously.
a really good season.
Um,
So, they've
I
they've they've done well last year, especially in that. But before that, they'd had a few misses, especially in the secondary.
I
So
just
I
wanted
wouldn't
an
be
excuse to
surprised if,
remind everyone that Mike Sanistril won a national championship with Michigan. I just wanted that one opportunity to throw that one back out there. Um,
yeah,
But again, I'm with you. And they say what you've got to do, I guess, is it feels a bit like, and I hate to always try and bring, I'm not trying to necessarily just bring it back to the Lions because of the Lions, but
hmm
what the Lions did at first was you sign a lot of people to 1 year contracts, and then if they buy into the culture, if they enjoy being there, and if they perform, you say, right, there's a deal. Let's come back. We want you back. Um, and if you do it the way I think that the Commanders have done, and they look like and should be a genuinely they put themselves out there as a good place to be, a place a player would want to be. They've clearly got a much better culture than they've had previously. The ownership group is not disgusting anymore.
no,
They
no.
they are genuinely good ownership. You want to be there as a player. You kind of expect now some of those players to be able to say, look, if we offer you what is a relatively fair market deal, but now stay here for 2 years, stay here for 3 years, and then
See, I could
start getting
see
that
them going for
longevity.
a player like, because I saw something recently about Jair Alexander for the Packers, right? Doesn't look like he's going to be back with the Packers after this season. He's had some injuries, but he can be an absolutely shut down corner. He's exactly what the Commanders need, and they got the money that they have to pay him. He's
Yeah,
27. He's still, you know if he's not in his prime, then he's maybe just out of it, and he's still a
yeah,
very, very good, serviceable cornerback who can shut down any wide receiver one. That's exactly the sort of player that they need on that defense.
yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how they take this going forward. I'd love to see Jair Alexander out of the NFC North. That'd be great, for one. But you're absolutely right, and I think, like I said, they're an attractive enough proposition place to be that I think they can bring in that talent. But like you said as well, if they want to just not throw dollar bills at it, they have the opportunity to do
Yeah,
so.
they do.
Make the most out of in a couple of years. Jaden Daniels is going to be taking a lot of money off you, so make the most out of that young man being on a rookie contract
Well,
as you
that's
can.
exactly what the 49ers did with Brock Purdy, right? I mean, he's on the rookie contract right now. He hasn't signed a big contract yet, and that's why they've been able to sign, all these. all these players that they have to these deals.
Yeah.
Now this offseason is where they have to retool because, it looks like
Yeah.
Debo's not going to be back with them. They've got some big free agents. I mean, I think George Kittle signed, is he? I don't think he's a free agent, but they got a lot of pieces in that team that are going to be free agents, and whether they re-sign or whether they sign somewhere else. So it's a similar situation to what happened with them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it will be. But yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels had one of the greatest, if not, yeah, I mean, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, rookie seasons we've ever seen, getting all the way to an NFC Championship game. So what player does not want to play with a team that's run by that guy? So yeah, we'll have to win see.
And he took everything. You saw CJ Stroud 2 year, well, we still calling it last season? I don't know. In 2023, you saw what
Yeah,
CJ Stroud did as a rookie, went to the Texans, a little bit of a struggle to start, ended up lighting it up, going to the playoffs, winning a game in the playoffs, and just being like, wow. Him and D'Amico Ryans. Now, obviously, Dan Quinn is not a rookie head coach like D'Amico Ryans was, but we all kind of went, God, we're not going to see a rookie QB do this well for a long time. And Jaden Daniels walked in and just went, hold my beer. And it just went that bit further. Um, so again, I absolutely agree. This is all about how now they can ride that wave of excitement and while they still can. The only other I think storyline I wanted to go at, and this is where I'm gonna leave this one to you because you are you're the Chiefs fan, you're the resident Chiefs expert. The Feels like the Chiefs are at a crossroads. Obviously, you've just
yeah.
lost a Super Bowl. The dynasty is the dynasty set up. It's not can't be anything other than a dynasty. Um, they're not questions over whether it is or isn't. But there are a number of players hitting free agency. Just lost a Super Bowl. Potentially, Travis Kelce is contemplating his life decisions, um,
Yeah.
and potentially could retire. We don't know how likely that is. What's going through his head? But for the sake of this, I will say Travis Kelce's come out and said, I'm as good as retire. I'm probably not going to
Mm,
play next season. Just for
yeah.
the hypothetical for this. Obviously, Mike Bogonzi is not the be all and end all for the Chiefs front office, but you've lost a key piece of that front office who's been there for a long time.
Yep.
Plays hitting free agency. Um, the what do the Chiefs do now? I mean, uh, how do the Chiefs move forward and operate?
They do exactly what they did when they got blown out by the Bucs in the Super Bowl. They hit that offensive line. That is the priority. You've got to protect Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't have to be the best offensive line in the league. You've already got Creed Humphrey, arguably the best center in football. You've already got left guard Joe Tooney, who was having to play left tackle just because of how bad the tackles were. And he's an elite left guard, right? Now, the question mark is going to be a right guard because Trey Smith is an impending free agent. He was a sixth round pick from the Chiefs. He's done a great job, especially as a run blocker. He's one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
Um, so the Chiefs most likely are not going to be able to re-sign him just because he's going to get a big payday. A team like the Bears need interior offensive line help, and they'll be able to pay him a pretty penny, a lot more than the Chiefs would be able to do. So the likelihood is that he's going to leave. So you're going to have to bolster that offensive line. The reason the
Yeah.
Chiefs lost the Super Bowl is because the offensive line, just shut down. They had their worst game of the season. Um, and all the holes that people had talked about that the Chiefs have been able to weather throughout the season came to the fore against the Eagles. Patrick Mahomes did not have time. He was under pressure a lot of the time. He was sacked 6 times. So, that's the area where the Chiefs are going to bolster. Obviously, they're going to have to look at their offense as well. They got arguably one of the worst running back rooms in the NFL, in my opinion. As Kareem Hunt did a great job last season, but the likelihood of him resign, I mean, he might resign on a small term contract, but Isaiah Pacheco was a shadow of himself last season. Obviously, he got injured, but he
Hmm.
wasn't effective in the Super Bowl. So they're going to have to hit that. Luckily, obviously, the draft's coming up, and as I said, it's a running back rich draft. So that's somewhere where the Chiefs need to bolster. They got a lot of wide receivers that are also free agents as well. Juju Smith-Schuster's a free agent. McCole Hardman's a free agent. Hollywood Brown's a free agent. So how many of these guys do you bring back? I mean, I think the Chiefs will probably re-sign Juju because I think he's a good glue guy. He made some big plays down the stretch on the lead on the way up to the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll re-sign DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know if they re-sign Hollywood Brown. Maybe they give him a whole year. Obviously, he had the injury and he came back and he wasn't the
Yeah.
same. But there's a lot of different question marks. But the biggest question mark of all is what do the Chiefs do about this offensive line?
Hmm.
I have the utmost respect for Andy Reid, for Brett Veach. What Brett Veach was able to do with the Chiefs after they lost to the Bucks in that Super Bowl was nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah.
And I have the confidence that they can do that again, but that is going to be the main need that they need to fix. The tackle position. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of good tackles available in free agency. Um, so it's going to be a tough one to fill, but it's something like they're not going to be able to replace right tackle because Jawaan Taylor's earning 20 million this year, so they can't get rid of him. But left tackle they're gonna have to do something because otherwise it's just going to be the same next season. And there's only so much Mahomes can do. And as you said, if Travis Kelce retires, they're going to need someone to be the focal point of that offense. Xavier Worthy proved that he could be that guy in the playoffs. I
Yeah.
mean, he was the Triple Crown winner in the playoffs. He had the most receptions, most receiving yards, most touchdowns. Um, so, he proved he can do it. Rasheed Rice is going to probably get a bit of a um suspension, but then when he's back, that tandem, those two, they're going to be the two main guys. Even if Travis Kelce does come back, the Chiefs even stipulated it and said that, if he comes back, he's going to have to take a step back in the offense. He's going to have to be more of a role player. He's not going to be the focal point of the offense, and that's
Yeah.
something he's going to have to deal with because the Chiefs have to deal with the reality that he is going to retire one day. Mahomes is not going to have his number one weapon, and that's why they've retold the offense. That's why they signed Xavier Worthy and Rasheed Rice, and those two guys are going to be studs. But if you don't have any running game, then I mean your team becomes one dimensional as well. So there's a lot of holes in the Chiefs team. I'm being quite negative right now, but overall, it's a good problem to have because I mean you've gone to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
But it's something they're gonna have to do if they're gonna have, any chance of getting back to that game and getting back to that level of competing with a team like the Eagles.
Yeah, no, completely. And it's gonna be, I think obviously the world's on tenterhooks. The whole NFL,
Mm.
everybody is just feels like well, everyone's waiting for the Chiefs to just not be good anymore. That's just the price of success is everyone starts to just hate you.
Yeah,
Um, at the
100%.
end of the day, which, but it always reminds me of like when you look at the Patriots and their dynasty. Don't forget they had a period in the middle. They had two really dominant periods where they were constantly in the Super Bowl and going on. But there was that period in the middle where I mean they weren't constantly going to Super Bowls. There was a few years where they just didn't make it and whatnot. They had a down period because at the end of the day, as much as yes, they were a dynasty for the vast majority of that time, it's just so hard to keep that going,
Mm.
especially in the NFL, especially when it's not like the MLB where you have if your owner is a billionaire and wants to spend billions, they can just spend billions and put it
Yep.
to. It's not like the Premier League where the richest teams can just continue to pump money or find ways to pump money into the squad and build these major uh Ross squads. I forgot the actual like football term for it then. It's been I'm gonna say rosters like but they can build these mega squads of just
Mhm.
world class players. It's so hard and teams will think like other teams will have their day, things will happen, and whether this becomes a point where the Chiefs have, I'm not going to say down years, like you'll make the playoffs, you'll continue to, if there is a little bit of like a year or two where maybe you're just kind of figuring that all back out again, it happens, but I think you'll get people to be quiet for a little bit, and just in a couple of years, people will forget, and then the Chiefs they'll find that one thing where
Well, you
they
say
set the
that,
next
but
bit
I've
off.
already seen. I saw something today, and it was like, what's the Chiefs' record going to be in 2026? And all the majority of the comments from the top were, "Oh, what are the refs going to give them? Refs this, refs that." So, that's still going to be there because
Yeah,
everyone hates on the team. It's fine when you win once, you're the Hollywood story. Oh, you won your first Super Bowl in 50 years or whatever. But then as soon as you become a consistent winner, everyone's like, nah, we're bored of this.
yeah,
We want to see something else. We want to see a change in the guard. And that's just the way sport works in essence. I mean, it's the same with there's a reason why a lot of teams and a lot of fans are loving the downfall of Man City because
yeah.
they've dominated for so long. So it just comes with the territory of being that successful. Um, and I just hope that the Chiefs, realize what happened in that game, and come back and don't let, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Patrick Mahomes got humiliated in that game. I mean, he wasn't very good in that game anyway. He obviously padded his stats towards the end. But yeah, they need to retool, they need to remodel. But let's not take away from the fact that
yeah,
the Chiefs were one game away from a three-peat. So it's not the world is not ending. The dynasty is not over. It's just
yeah.
it's going to be another iteration of how the Chiefs are going to be able to retool and create a team that is able to compete for championships.
Exactly. Like I say, I've tried to be that one, but I'm not buying into the media now. And everyone else saying, no, the media loves the Chiefs. Like, no, they played you all like fiddles. We've watched the narratives get spun and created and all that sort of stuff in front of our very own eyes. And I've tried to be one that's not falling for it. Because at the end of the day, all I've sat here and said, Patrick Mahomes is the best damn quarterback in this league. Um, and the Chiefs are just an incredible team with the best coaching, the best play. It is what it is. It's the reality of it, and we can word it whatever way we want. But that's the reality of the situation, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to. I like the evolution of the sport and the way it's going to continue to move, and I'm excited to see. I'm genuinely excited to see how the Chiefs fall within that and how they do that going forward. Um, it's just going to be one of them. And I do want to say the one more thing, and I'm not saying you are, but don't let it take away as well from the fact that just that Eagles D line is monstrous
Oh
and
yeah, no, don't get me wrong.
disgusting.
I mean, I was watching that game when I was like, obviously, I knew it was I kind of felt it was over when Cooper DeJean scored that touchdown before half time. But
Yeah,
that Eagles D line had an absolute field day. They were incredible. Um, I guess the disappointing thing from the perspective of a Chiefs fan was that they weren't doing that much different. As in, like they weren't changing up that many things. They would
yeah,
just, pin your ears back, put seven in coverage, rush four, and get to the quarterback. And they just continued and relentless, and they continued to do it. So all power to them.
yeah, yeah,
I personally think that what's his name, Josh Sweat, potentially, if Jalen Hurts hadn't thrown that touchdown to Devontae Smith, I think Josh Sweat could have been Super Bowl MVP with the way he hit the game that he had. But yeah, I take nothing away from the Eagles. They were incredible in that game. They
yeah.
played the Chiefs off the park. So yeah.
Yeah. So just as we start to wrap up, is there any other story? Is there anything that you're particularly invested in throughout the off season? I have one more little thing for us to talk about in a minute, but if there's anything you're particularly looking forward to this off season,
Um, I think I always look forward to like the news that isn't really news, that like it's you know it's not fake news, but it's like the media's coming up with it because it's the off season and it's something to talk
yeah,
about. Which I always love that sort of stuff, reading it and being like, this is such nonsense, but I'm still going to read it anyway.
yeah,
So I look forward to those sort of things, and the talking heads, they're talking about every single thing that could potentially happen. So
no,
and
but the blades of grass were longer
I
this year.
will relish in all these pundits and all these people saying, the Chiefs are done, the Chiefs, all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, but I love seeing the stuff that is just nonsense reporting.
yeah. Does it make a difference when you grow the turf by 0.1 millimeter? And
Yeah, that's
does it
literally
affect
it.
injuries? And does it affect performance and
Mm,
speed? And those articles are always the best. I'm looking forward to, there's always one every year who's the NFL media's like the person they put a hit out on going into the draft. There's
mm,
always one. A couple ago it was Jalen Carter. It's been there's always one every year. There's someone who they just start writing hit pieces on. Character concerns. I'm waiting for the character concerns. I feel like Shadar Sanders is being picked up as that one
mm.
at the moment, or Travis Hunter will be that one. I always look forward to that one because sometimes it's not who you expect, sometimes it is. Which Georgia player are they going to keep bringing up as like a something they've done that's problematic? Normally drinking and driving. It's Georgia.
Which
That's what
Georgia
they're known
player is going
for.
to get drafted by the Eagles?
Yeah,
That's-
which injured Alabama player gets drafted by the Lions? Like that's always my um
Well, to be fair, at least the injured Alabama player that you signed has actually worked out. Jameson Williams is an absolute, rocket of a
both
QB.
of them have, because Brian Branch was an injured Alabama player.
Yeah,
Jameer
yeah, yeah,
Gibbs
yeah.
had injury history as an Alabama player. Like these, it's something that Brad Holmes just likes, and this is why like I looking through Alabama's rosters now. We'll see Kalen DeBoer now. They've had Kalen DeBoer for a year. See if he feels the same way. Um, but injured Alabama players are always just something that Brad Holmes seems to like. Um, the other quite like the last little bit I want to ask you is just the combines this week. There's lots to talk about. There's lots going on. Players like Shadar Sanders, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Ashton Genty have come out and said that they're not going to be doing workouts. They're going to save the workouts for their pro days. Not necessarily wanting to get in too much into that. Obviously, we'll get your thoughts on that in a second in general. But is there any players you're particularly looking forward to seeing in this year's combine, seeing how they do work out, seeing how they measure? Um, is there any position groups that you're particularly invested in as far as the combine goes this year?
I'd say position groups. I think this is quite a good cornerback draft. So I'd like to see that. I mean, you got some really good cornerbacks like Will Johnson from Michigan,
Yeah,
um, and Jahdae Barron from Texas as well. So I like them. But the one that I'm really looking forward to seeing is I mean, Abdul Carter. I mean, the guy is just an absolute
yeah,
beast. I mean, for a guy that, he hasn't got, big height, big bulk or big build, but he just has that elite burst, that elite speed to get to the quarterbacks.
yeah.
So I
Ooh,
want to see him work out. And I always love seeing the big D tackles or DNs running. I mean, what
yeah,
did we see? Last year we saw Braden Fisk run like a 4.7 something or 4.6
yeah,
something. So I want to see one of those big guys run like the absolute win,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah, the ones where you sat there going, "Oh, big man can move."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and then Rich
Exactly.
Eisen doing his 40-yard dash every year. That's always
Yes.
that a nice little thing to add
See how
on.
slow he gets every single year. But
But yeah, do you know what? I completely agree. The defensive lines this year for me,
Mhm.
the your trenches are really where I think there's a real strong pres that's strong in this year's draft. The I like I say I agree with with the cornerbacks. Your DBs, it's a strong DB class. Um, as we said before, quarterbacks not the strongest. Uh,
Mm,
there's a couple of good running backs coming out of the draft.
yes.
Obviously, Ashton Genty, who, if you don't know about him already, don't care if you only watch the NFL, get out the rock you've been under. Ashton Genty has been
Mm,
hot on everyone's lips for a year.
yeah.
Cam Scatterboo, always,
Yes.
he's really, really grown his stock over the last couple of months. Obviously, with the playoff run that Arizona State went through, and well, the great season that they ended up having. Fun. One of the funny things about Arizona State is they were predicted to finish last in their conference and then ended up winning the conference and going on a
Mm.
playoff run, which great to see as always. Um, so I think, yeah, there's some good couple of good running backs, some good wide receivers coming through, but for me it's the trenches. That's where I'm most excited. And yeah, obviously within that, I want to see a big man who can move. Um, but also just I think just see. But my to wrap up,
Mm.
players opting out of workouts and things like that. What are your
Mm.
thoughts on it? Do you like the idea? Are you against the idea? Are you do you not care?
Um, I think there is some, it's hard to judge really, but it kind of I think there will be some teams that be like you, the fact that you're not out there and you're not throwing shows that you're not willing to actually compete.
Yeah,
But I think what these guys have put on tape proves otherwise from that anyway. And I think, they're so confident in their own abilities of what they can do. They've shown it, people can watch it and be like, this is how this guy plays. That they got so much confidence and swagger in themselves that they're like, I don't need to go out there and throw. People know who I am, people know what I can do. So it kind of brings confidence, but it also breeds, why are they not going out there? And it's a shame for all the people um, covering the combine as well. I
yeah,
think that all the NFL people, the people on the NFL Network, talking because, yeah, they can you know, um, talk about them in general and be like, oh, okay, look at this guy's tape or whatever. But actually seeing them throw out there is different. I mean, I remember
yeah,
when CJ Stroud went out and threw, and all of them were like, wow, this guy can throw it. So, I mean, it doesn't prove that much the combat. Like, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one because it can show signs of something, but then
yeah,
there's also, a lot of it doesn't really matter that much, to be honest. So, I mean, I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think Jaden Daniels threw at the last combine, did he?
I don't think so. Caleb Williams didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And
Um,
and look what and then look what Jaden Daniels did in the NFL this year. So,
I
uh,
mean,
yeah.
I say I'm going. If you follow the College Football UK podcast, you'll get this in a few days. If not, go listen to the College Football UK podcast. I will expand on this because obviously this does pertain a lot more to college football as well as the NFL. I will give my thoughts on this in a bit more detail. I get it. I get it. I depending on who you speak. As far as Shador Sanders, everyone's made a big deal out of Shador Sanders doing it. No one cares about Ashton Genty saying it. Cam Ward saying it. Um, Travis Hunter's going in as a cornerback as well. By the way, I remembered that's something that's got to be mentioned. Travis Hunter, the obviously two-way in college, played like every snap of every game apart from special teams. He even then played some special teams. Um, he's going in as a cornerback into the combine, and that's how he's going to be measured in the workouts that he's going to do. Smart idea from him. But yeah, as far as workouts goes, um, my thing, if you are, I mean, depending on who you speak to, especially as far as, I mean, everyone thinks Cam Ward's going to be a top five pick. That's
Mm,
depending on who you speak to. Shador Sanders is either a top three pick or he's a day three pick.
mm,
Depending on who
mm,
you speak, because the feelings on Shador Sanders are so varied, and whether some of it's media hype, whether it's some of it's media playing him down, I don't know.
mm.
Um, we'll see how he does, but I'm 100% sure he'll be a top half of the. he'll be in the top five. I'm pretty sure he'll be in the top five. Just because of the way some teams need QBs, as we mentioned.
Hmm.
Um,
I'm excited to see whose draft stock drops as well. I mean,
yeah,
what was it last? Not was it last? Yeah, last year was it was Will Levis, wasn't it? Or was that the year before? But
that was the
he
year
it
before.
was the year
Yeah,
before, wasn't it? Where it was thought that he would be like one of the top three, top four, and then he dropped all the way to
but
what the end of the first round, start of the
was it?
second round.
That
So,
didn't even have anything to do with the combine. That was like
hmm.
the morning of the draft. He was picked to go fourth overall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Ahead, like where Anthony Richardson went to the Colts, he was picked to go where Anthony Richardson went, and there he is at the end of the day on day one. We've spoke about this before about Aaron Rodgers years ago, where they keep
yes.
panning to him towards the end of the day, and Will Levis got dragged because everyone talked about how his girlfriend looked just increasingly more annoyed as the day went on, and
Mm,
she wasn't
mm,
there for day two. Um, um, which is but less said about that the better. Um, the but I say for me as well as when people do workouts, again, I'll elaborate further on this throughout the week. I understand it. It's a business decision.
mm,
The combine, Shador Sanders, if he is truly in the mind frame of right now, I am a top five pick. Now, if I'm Shador Sanders, I'm thinking I am not getting better than this. You
mm,
can't. Shador Sanders is not. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's that good. All this can do is make his draft stock fall. This
mm.
can't. He's not going to gain draft stock from it.
Yeah.
All he can do is lose draft stock. Why would he? Go do it at your own pro day when you've got your own wide receivers. And if you're just having a normal day throwing, you don't. But what you can do during those drills is make your wide receivers look good, make your guys look great, and put better tape on for those guys. You might not gain your own. If you're doing it at the combine, you're making some guy from the University of Kentucky look good. You're making a guy from from Boston College look good. You're making all
True.
the other wide receivers look good.
Yeah.
Go do it for your own guys. I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying it's the right decision, but I'm saying it's the whole kind of. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. Just saying I understand. This is a business decision. He's made the business decision. It is what it is. Um, I understand the reasoning. Um, is just about where I stand on that. Right now, I'll probably change my mind on Wednesday night and just be like, the guy's scum of the earth. Right, this is the NFL Combine we're talking about. How dare you sully the name of the NFL Combine? Um, but I also don't think it matters too much anymore. The Combine is primarily for teams to get in front of players and
Yeah.
ask them the ridiculous questions that they always ask. Like, if I bought a
Mm.
tablet yesterday, how do I fry an egg? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah. Yeah.
it's where they get to do that. Like,
Although what's quite interesting is that a lot of the top players or I think the Players Association or whatever have said that no one's going to do any of the testing. Do you know that testing that
yeah,
CJ Stroud got
yeah,
panned for, all that kind of thing. So that is quite interesting that they're like, yeah, none of our representatives are going to do that because
no,
it's a load of bollocks, basically. So yeah,
yeah.
there we
Well,
go.
because the street CJ Stroud failed miserably at it, didn't he? He was
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
horrible Scott, and then obviously went and did what he did in the NFL. Or he is doing what he is doing in the NFL. Um, right. So I think that's where we're gonna leave it tonight, Tom. Um, thank you for joining me. It's been a long one, but I think we've been enough time without football now that we're just once you start, it can't stop. Um,
yes.
next week, what's on the menu for next week? Obviously, we'll review some of the combine. Um, I think that'll be the primary source of what we do next week. We'll just look at the combine.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we'll see whose draft stock has increased or decreased
yeah,
based on how they performed at the combine or and that
exactly.
sort of thing, or who's the new darling off the back of the combine, people
Yeah,
being
yeah,
like, oh wow, this guy's going to be great in the NFL. So yeah, I'm sure we'll have plenty of that to talk about.
Yeah, plenty. There'll be some records set. There'll be some whatever. I mean, last year I don't think we're going to see the 40-yard dash
I
record
don't know
break
if that's going to
anytime
be broken. Not yet,
soon.
anyway.
But yeah, that should be fun. Anyway, thank you, Tom. And I think the hurdle that off season. I don't know. Next week it's going to be hurdle that combine. So
Hmm.
hurdle that off season.